The laptop screen cast a harsh glow across my face as I stared at the email, reading it for the fourth time. Each word felt like a slap, each sentence a betrayal wrapped in corporate jargon and false promises. My name is Alex, and I just discovered my husband was planning to steal my family's legacy. Hey babe, have you seen my charger? Ryan's voice floated up from downstairs, casual and warm, as if he hadn't just drafted an email to a shady investment firm about leveraging my parents' organic food empire for his get-rich-quick scheme. Check the kitchen drawer, I called back, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. The email draft sat there mocking me with its implications. Access to Monroe Organics assets, significant investment opportunity, family connections. The stairs creaked under Ryan's feet as he approached our home office. I quickly switched tabs to Amazon, but the image of that email burned behind my eyes, like an after-image of the sun. Found it, he said, leaning against the doorframe with that easy smile that used to make my heart skip. Now it just made my stomach turn. What are you up to? Just looking at birthday presents for Lily. The lie came easily, protection instinct kicking in. 3 is a big year. He crossed the room and kissed the top of my head. Don't spoil her too much. Speaking of money, I've been meaning to talk to you about an amazing investment opportunity. Really? I swiveled in my chair to face him. What kind of opportunity? It's complicated, but basically, try me. I folded my arms. I'm pretty good with complicated things. His smile flickered for a moment. Well, there's this firm that specializes in family business expansion. They've got a track record of taking companies like your parents and really maximizing their potential. Maximizing their potential, I repeated. And how exactly would that work? They'd need some collateral, of course, but the returns… Collateral. The word tasted bitter. You mean my parents' company, their life's work? Ryan's expression shifted, that mask of charm cracking just slightly. Alex, you're not looking at the bigger picture here. This could set us up for life. Set Lily up for life. Don't. My voice came out sharp. Don't you dare use our daughter to justify this. Justify what? I'm trying to help our family. I stood up, my chair rolling back against the desk. By going behind my back? By trying to leverage assets that aren't yours to leverage? I was going to discuss it with you. When? Before or after you sent that email sitting in your drafts? The silence that followed was deafening. Ryan's face went through a series of micro-expressions, surprise, guilt, anger, and finally, that carefully constructed calm he wore like armor. You went through my email? That's what you're concerned about? Not the fact that you're plotting to use my family's business as collateral without their knowledge? I was protecting you, he said, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd grown to hate. If you knew all the details up front, you'd just worry unnecessarily. A laugh escaped me, harsh and bitter. Protect me, by lying to me, by trying to steal from my family. It's not stealing if it's family, he said, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. Your parents have more than enough. They could help us build something of our own. In that moment, looking at his perfectly sincere expression, I realized something that shook me to my core. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. This was who he was, who he'd always been. From downstairs, Lily's voice called out, "Mommy? Daddy?" "Coming, sweetheart," I called back, not breaking eye contact with Ryan. "This conversation isn't over." "Alex, not over." I brushed past him, heading downstairs to our daughter, my mind already racing with plans. I had to protect my family's legacy, but more importantly, I had to protect Lily from the man I'd foolishly married. The man who was about to learn exactly what happens when you try to steal from a Monroe. The crystal wine glasses clinked with forced cheerfulness as Barbara raised her glass. "To family," she announced, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. We sat around my dining room table, Ryan, his parents, Lily in her booster seat, and me, all pretending this was just another Sunday dinner. I took a small sip, the wine bitter on my tongue. 3 days had passed since I'd discovered Ryan's email, and the tension between us stretched like a tripwire across our home. He'd been careful since then, watching me with wary eyes, speaking in measured tones. Alexandra, George cleared his throat, using my full name like always. Ryan tells us Monroe Organics is expanding into the West Coast market. We're exploring options, I said carefully, cutting Lily's chicken into smaller pieces. She hummed happily, oblivious to the undercurrents swirling around her. Barbara leaned forward, her jewelry catching the light. It must be wonderful having such security, such opportunities. My parents worked hard for everything they built, I replied, my knife scraping against the plate a little too forcefully. Of course they did, dear. But surely they'd want to share that success with family. Barbara's voice dripped with honey-coated venom. After all, Ryan's been such a supportive husband. Ryan shifted in his seat. Mom, it's true, she pressed on. You've put your own ambitions aside to support Alexandra's teaching career. Such sacrifice deserves recognition. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Sacrifice? Ryan chose his career path. Nobody forced him to. What Barbara means, George interrupted, is that families should support each other in all ways, including financially. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Ryan's hand found my knee under the table, squeezing in warning. I resisted the urge to shake it off. Well, Barbara dabbed her lips with her napkin, when some family members are more fortunate than others, it's only natural to want to help level the playing field. Level the playing field, I repeated, feeling that familiar anger rising. Is that what you call trying to leverage my family's company without their knowledge? The room went still. Even Lily stopped humming, sensing the shift in atmosphere. Alexandra? Ryan's voice was low, dangerous. Not now. Then when? I turned to face him. When you and your parents have finished planning how to best use my family's hard work for your get-rich-quick schemes. Barbara's face flushed red. How dare you? No, how dare you? I cut her off. You sit in my home, eat at my table, and have the audacity to suggest I have some sort of obligation to fund your lifestyle. Mommy? Lily's small voice quivered. Why is everyone mad? The innocent question hit me like a punch to the gut. I forced a smile. Nobody's mad, sweetheart. Why don't you go play with your toys in the living room? Once Lily was out of earshot, George leaned forward. Listen here, young lady. No, you listen, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. My parents built their company from nothing. They worked 18-hour days, missed holidays, sacrificed everything. They didn't have wealthy in-laws to bail them out. They did it themselves. And now they have more than they could ever need, Barbara snapped. While you what? Struggle to maintain appearances? Keep up with the country club membership? That's not my problem. Ryan stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Enough, Mom, Dad. I think it's time you went home. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of tense goodbyes and slammed car doors. Later, as I loaded the dishwasher, Ryan appeared in the kitchen doorway. You embarrassed them, he said quietly. They were just trying to help. I laughed, the sound hollow. Help themselves, you mean? They're family, Alex. No. I shut the dishwasher with more force than necessary. They're your family, and they're using you to get to mine. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. The question is, do you understand what you're risking? What you're willing to lose? I left him standing there, heading upstairs to check on Lily. As I watched her sleeping peacefully, I made a decision. Tomorrow I'd call Jessica. It was time to start making plans of my own. The bank statement trembled in my hands as I sat in Jessica's kitchen. Each transaction told its own story of betrayal. Country club dues, luxury car payments, designer boutiques, all flowing from our joint account to the Thompsons' lifestyle. $12,000 in 3 months, Jessica whispered, looking over my shoulder. To his parents. While I've been clipping coupons and buying Lily's clothes second-hand, my voice cracked. He said we needed to budget carefully. Jessica slid a fresh cup of coffee across the table. Have you confronted him? Not yet. I needed proof first. I spread out more statements, each one a fresh wound. Look at this pattern. Every time his parents have a crisis, money disappears from our account. Their cruise ship emergency? $3,000. Their roof repair? $4,000. Their medical bills? I laughed bitterly. Botox and tennis elbow? $2,000. The front door chimed and Ryan walked in, his timing impeccable as always. He froze when he saw the papers spread across Jessica's kitchen table. Alex, what are you doing here? Finding out where our daughter's college fund went. I held up a statement. Care to explain the $5,000 withdrawal to Thompson Family Trust? Jessica stood. I'll give you two some privacy. No, I said, not taking my eyes off Ryan. Stay. I want a witness. Ryan's charm switched on like a light. Sweetheart, I can explain. Mum and Dad were in a tight spot. They're always in a tight spot, Ryan. But this time you crossed a line. They're family. So is Lily. I slammed my hand on the table. Or did you forget about her future while you were bankrolling your parents' country club membership? His facade cracked. They needed help. They needed a reality check. And so do you. I stood, gathering the statements. I trusted you. I believed in us. But you've been stealing from our family since day one. It wasn't stealing. I was going to pay it back once the investment came through. What investment? Jessica interjected. Ryan shot her a venomous look. This is between me and my wife. Not anymore, I said. Not when you're destroying our daughter's future to maintain your parents' champagne lifestyle. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. His voice rose. They gave up everything for me, sacrificed everything. So now you're sacrificing our family to repay them? I stepped closer. Tell me, Ryan, was that the plan all along? Marry into money and slowly bleed us dry? His silence was deafening. Oh my God, Jessica breathed. It was, wasn't it? Alex, Ryan reached for me, but I stepped back. Baby, please, we can work this out. I'll pay it all back. With what money? I pulled out my phone, showing him our account balance. We're overdrawn. Again. Because you sent another $2,000 to your mother yesterday. His face paled. How did you... I finally did what I should have done years ago. I started paying attention. I gathered my things, hands steady despite the storm inside me. The account's frozen now. I've moved my salary to a private account. You want to support your parents? Do it with your own money. You can't do this to me, he growled, mask finally slipping completely. To them, we're family. Family doesn't steal from family, I cut him off. Family doesn't lie and manipulate and destroy their child's future for their own gain. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Ryan. I've hired a forensic accountant. They're going through everything, every account, every transaction, every investment opportunity you've explored using my family's name. The colour drained from his face. Alex, wait. I'm done waiting. I looked at Jessica. Can Lily and I stay with you for a few days? She nodded, keys already in hand. As we left, Ryan called after me. You'll regret this, Alex. You need me. I didn't look back. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with an incoming email, the preliminary findings from the accountant. Something told me we'd barely scratched the surface of Ryan's deception, but for the first time in months, I felt something besides anger and betrayal. I felt powerful. Jessica's guest room felt like a sanctuary and a prison. 3 days had passed since I'd confronted Ryan, and my phone buzzed constantly with messages I couldn't bring myself to read. Lily's small suitcase sat in the corner, her favourite stuffed giraffe peeking out, a reminder of everything at stake. The forensic accountant's report lay open on the bed, each page more damning than the last. I traced the numbers with my finger, following the web of deceit that had been woven around me. A soft knock at the door. Alex? Jessica entered with 2 cups of tea. Lily's finally asleep. She keeps asking when she can go home. My throat tightened. What did you tell her? That we're having a special sleepover. She handed me a cup. The accountant called again. I know. I gestured to the papers. Ryan didn't just take from our account. He's been forging my signature on loan applications. Jessica sat beside me, scanning the documents. How much? Almost $500,000. The words felt like ash in my mouth, using my stake in Monroe Organics as collateral. Jesus Christ! Jessica's hand found mine. Does he really think he'll get away with this? A text message lit up my phone. Ryan, we need to talk, for Lily's sake. He's desperate, I said, turning the phone face down, which makes him dangerous. Have you told your parents yet? Before I could answer, another text arrived, this time from my mother. Darling, Barbara just called. She's very concerned about you and Lily. What's going on? They're closing ranks, I muttered, showing Jessica the message. Ryan's parents are trying to control the narrative. Then change it. Jessica stood, pacing the room. You have proof now. Use it. It's not that simple. I pulled out another document, a photo of Ryan and his father meeting with someone I recognized. Look who they've been talking to. Jessica squinted at the image. Is that James Morton, my parents' biggest competitor? The pieces had finally clicked into place. Ryan wasn't just stealing money. He was gathering information about Monroe Organics, meeting with our competitors. Corporate espionage? Jessica whispered. Alex, this is bigger than a divorce. This is criminal. I finished her sentence. And if it gets out, it could destroy my parents' company, everything they've built. A car door slammed outside. Jessica rushed to the window. It's Ryan. My heart stuttered. Through the curtains, I could see him standing in the driveway, looking up at the house. His usual polished appearance was gone, replaced by something raw, more desperate. Alex! His voice carried through the closed windows. I know you're in there. You can't keep my daughter from me. Jessica reached for her phone. I'm calling the police. Wait. I watched as Ryan paced the driveway, running his hands through his hair. He wants a scene, wants to play the concerned father. Then what do? I gathered the documents, sliding them into a folder. We give him exactly what he doesn't want. Exposure. Alex, I'm done hiding. I pulled out my phone, dialing a number I knew by heart. Dad, we need to talk. All of us. Tomorrow morning at the office. Ryan's voice grew louder outside. Alex, don't make me do something we'll both regret. I walked to the window, making sure he could see me clearly. His eyes met mine, and for a moment I saw something flicker across his face. Fear. You're right, Ryan, I called down, my voice steady. No more regrets. 9 a.m. tomorrow at Monroe Organics. Bring your parents, bring your lawyers, bring everyone who helped you try to destroy my family. You don't want to do this, he warned. Actually, I do. I closed the curtains, turning back to Jessica. Can you watch Lily tomorrow morning? She nodded, understanding in her eyes. Are you sure about this? I looked at the folder of evidence, then at my daughter's suitcase. Everything I needed to protect, everything I needed to fight for, was right here. Yes, I said. It's time to end this. On my terms. The Monroe Organics boardroom felt colder than I remembered. My father's face had aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes as he reviewed the documents spread before him. Mother sat beside him, her usually perfect posture rigid with fury. He did what? Her whisper could have cut glass. I tapped the loan agreement. Used my power of attorney to secure a $5 million loan. The collateral? 20% of Monroe Organics' distribution network. Dad's hands trembled as he reached for another document. These signatures. Forged. I slid forward the forensic analyst's report. All of them. Including the board meeting minutes, where I supposedly approved the transfer of shares. The door burst open. Ryan strode in, followed by his parents and James Morton himself. The sight of our biggest competitor in my family's boardroom made my blood boil. Alex, you're making a mistake. Ryan's voice carried that familiar patronizing tone. This was all going to benefit our family. By selling us out to Morton Foods? I stood, planting both hands on the table. That was your master plan. James Morton cleared his throat. Mrs. Thompson, if I may. It's Ms. Monroe, I cut him off. And you may not. Barbara stepped forward, her designer handbag clutched like a shield. Alexandra, dear, you're being dramatic. Ryan was simply exploring opportunities. Opportunities? My mother's voice cracked like a whip. You call corporate espionage an opportunity? George Thompson puffed up. Now see here. No, you see here. I pulled out my phone, playing a recording. Ryan's voice filled the room. Morton's offering triple what it's worth. Once the transfer's complete, we'll have controlling interest. The old guard won't know what hit them. The colour drained from Ryan's face. You recorded me? You taught me well. I stopped the recording. Always gather leverage, right? Alex. Ryan stepped toward me, hands raised in surrender. Baby, please. I can explain everything. Can you explain this? I produced another document, a private investigator's report. Your secret meetings with Morton? The offshore accounts? The systematic dismantling of our security protocols? Barbara gasped. George grabbed the back of a chair for support. You don't understand. Ryan's charm cracked, revealing desperation beneath. My parents needed... Your parents needed? I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. What about our daughter? What about her future? I did this for her. Ryan slammed his fist on the table, so she wouldn't grow up watching her father beg for scraps from your family. The room fell silent. In that moment, I saw Ryan clearly for the first time. Not as my husband, not as my betrayer, but as something far more pathetic. Get out, my father said quietly. Henry, George started. All of you, Dad stood, his voice gaining strength. Morton, you're looking at industrial espionage charges. The Thompsons, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. My lawyers will be in touch. You can't prove anything, Ryan sneered. I pulled out one final document. Actually, we can. Remember that power of attorney you used? I had it revoked 3 months ago. Everything you've done since then. That's criminal fraud. Ryan's facade crumbled completely. You planned this. I learned from the best. I gathered the documents. The police are waiting downstairs, along with the SEC investigators. Barbara burst into tears. George looked ready to faint. But Ryan just stared at me, his expression morphing from shock to hatred. You'll regret this, he hissed. What about Lily? You really want her to grow up without a father? Better than growing up with a thief and a liar. I walked to the door, then turned back. Oh, and Ryan? The prenup you thought was ironclad. Check the date on your forged power of attorney. You invalidated it yourself. As security led them away, I watched from the boardroom window. My parents stood beside me, their presence solid and reassuring. What now? Mother asked softly. I thought of Lily, safe with Jessica, and of the future I needed to protect for her. Now, I straightened my spine, now we rebuild and make sure nothing like this ever happens again. The elevator doors closed on Ryan's face, and with them the last remnants of the life I thought I'd had. It hurt, but it was a clean hurt, like setting a broken bone. Time to heal. The courthouse bathroom mirror reflected a woman I barely recognized. 3 weeks had passed since Ryan's arrest, and the media circus hadn't stopped. Every local paper carried the same headlines. Monroe Organics heir in corporate espionage scandal, or family business betrayal rocks local industry. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to steady my nerves. In 10 minutes, I'd have to face Ryan again, this time across a courtroom. The door creaked open. Barbara Thompson stood there, looking smaller without her designer clothes and perfectly coiffed hair. Alexandra, her voice wavered. Please, just 5 minutes. I reached for a paper towel. Your lawyer advised against this. To hell with the lawyers. She stepped closer. It's about Lily. My hand froze. What about her? Ryan's filing for full custody. Barbara's words hit like bullets. He says you're unstable, that your vendetta against him proves you're unfit. The paper towel crumpled in my fist. He wouldn't dare. He has witness statements, from your neighbours, from other parents at Lily's daycare. She pulled out a folder. They'll testify about your erratic behaviour these past months. The late-night arguments, the police visits. My legs weakened. I gripped the sink. Those were because of him. It doesn't matter, he's painting you as obsessed, paranoid. Barbara's eyes met mine in the mirror. Drop the charges, Alexandra, for Lily's sake. Is that a threat? It's a mother trying to protect her grandchild. She set the folder on the counter. Read it, then decide if revenge is worth losing your daughter. She left me there, staring at my reflection as her words sank in. The folder felt heavy in my hands as I opened it. Each page was worse than the last, carefully crafted statements that twisted every protective action I'd taken into something sinister. My phone buzzed. Jessica. Where are you? Court starts in 2 minutes. I couldn't move. Everything I'd done to protect Lily could now be used to take her away. The justice I'd sought had become a weapon against me. The courtroom doors loomed ahead as I finally forced myself to walk. Inside, Ryan sat with his legal team, looking polished and concerned, every inch the wronged husband and father. All rise. As the judge entered, Ryan caught my eye. The ghost of a smile played at his lips, and I realized with crushing clarity this had been his plan all along. He'd known I'd fight back, known I'd expose him. He'd counted on it. Your Honor, his lawyer stood. Before we proceed, we'd like to file an emergency motion regarding custody of the minor child. The words washed over me as panic set in. I'd been so focused on protecting my family's legacy, I'd handed Ryan the ammunition to take what mattered most. My lawyer touched my arm. Alex, they're asking for an immediate temporary order. We need to respond. I looked around the courtroom. At Ryan's smug confidence, at Barbara's carefully crafted distress, at the reporters scribbling in their notebooks. The walls seemed to close in. Ms. Monroe? The judge's voice cut through my haze. Do you have a response to these allegations? I stood on shaking legs, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. One wrong word could cost me everything. The revenge I'd thought would protect my daughter could now tear her away from me. Your Honor, My voice cracked. Ryan leaned forward, that familiar concerned expression perfectly in place. It's okay, Alex. We just want what's best for Lily. In that moment, I understood the true cost of revenge. It wasn't measured in dollars or reputation. It was measured in the possibility of losing the one person I'd fought so hard to protect. The judge waited expectantly. My lawyer tensed beside me. And somewhere across town, my daughter played in Jessica's living room, unaware that her whole world hung in the balance of what I said next. The taste of victory had turned to ash in my mouth. Now I had to decide, continue the fight and risk losing Lily, or surrender and let Ryan win again. Some choices feel like drowning either way. The judge's chambers felt suffocating, despite the high ceilings and mahogany panels. Ryan sat across from me, his lawyer whispering in his ear. Barbara and George huddled in the corner, their usual confidence replaced by something more brittle. Before we proceed with the custody hearing, Judge Martinez said, there's new evidence that's come to light. My lawyer placed a USB drive on the desk. Your Honor, we've received this from an unexpected source. Barbara's sharp intake of breath drew my attention. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Mrs. Thompson, the judge addressed Barbara. You requested this meeting. Would you like to explain? Ryan's head snapped toward his mother. Mom? Barbara's hands trembled as she stood. I can't do this anymore. She pulled out a stack of papers. These are the original documents, the ones Ryan asked us to destroy. Mother, shut up. Ryan's charm evaporated like morning dew. No. Barbara's voice strengthened. I watched you destroy Alexandra's family the same way you destroyed ours. I won't let you take Lily too. The judge reviewed the documents while Ryan's face darkened. These show a pattern of premeditated fraud dating back 5 years. Before the marriage. It was his father's idea, Barbara continued, tears streaming. We were desperate. The medical bills, the gambling debts. George thought if Ryan could marry into the Monroe family. You told me we had no choice, George erupted. That we'd lose everything. Enough! Ryan slammed his hands on the table. You're ruining everything. I sat frozen watching the family implode. All this time I'd thought Ryan was the mastermind, but he'd been a puppet too, dancing to his parents' desperate tune. Your Honor, Ryan's lawyer attempted damage control. These documents are authenticated, my lawyer interrupted. The USB contains emails between the Thompsons and James Morton, outlining their entire plan. Mrs. Thompson provided them. Ryan lunged toward his mother. You stupid. Mr. Thompson, The judge's voice cracked like thunder. "Control yourself or I'll have you removed." I found my voice. "Why now, Barbara?" She wiped her eyes, looking suddenly old. "Because I saw myself in you. A mother who'd do anything to protect her child. What we did. What we pushed Ryan to do. It has to stop." "This changes nothing," Ryan snarled. "I'll still get custody. Alex is unstable, vindictive." "No," Barbara cut him off. "You won't. Because I'm testifying about how you planned this custody battle. How you orchestrated those witness statements. How you threatened them. The room spun. All my careful plans for revenge hadn't brought Ryan down. His own mother had." "Your Honour," I said quietly, "I don't want revenge anymore. I just want my daughter safe." The judge nodded. "Given this new evidence, the custody hearing is suspended. Mr. Thompson, you're remanded into custody pending additional criminal charges." As security led Ryan away, he turned to me one last time. "I did love you, Alex. In my way." "Your way wasn't love," I replied. "It was ownership." Barbara approached me after Ryan left, George trailing behind like a shadow. "Alexandra, I know we don't deserve forgiveness." "You're right, you don't." I gathered my things. "But Lily deserves to know her grandparents, even flawed ones. If you want a relationship with her, it'll be on my terms. And you'll both get help, financial counselling, therapy, whatever it takes." "Why would you give us another chance?" George asked. I thought of Lily, of the weight of family legacy, both good and bad. Because revenge doesn't heal anything, but maybe redemption can. Barbara reached for my hand. I let her take it, feeling the tremors in her grip. "Thank you," she whispered. I withdrew my hand. "Don't thank me yet. Proving yourselves trustworthy will take time." "Are you ready for that?" They nodded, and in their eyes, I saw something I recognized, the desperate need to rebuild from ruins. I'd been there myself, not so long ago. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's resurrection. The Monroe Organics boardroom looked different in the morning light. Gone were the shadows of betrayal and secrets, replaced by stacks of documents and fresh coffee. My mother sat beside me, reviewing the final settlement papers. "Are you sure about this?" She tapped the section outlining Barbara and George's role in the company's new community outreach program. I watched Lily through the glass walls, sitting at Jessica's desk in the outer office, drawing pictures with the determined focus only a 3-year-old could muster. "They need structure," I said. "Purpose, something beyond appearances and status." "And you trust them." "I trust that they want to know their granddaughter." I signed another document. "The rest will take time." The door opened and Barbara entered, looking almost unrecognizable in business casual rather than her usual designer wear. "The first financial literacy workshop has 10 families signed up." "Good." I pushed a folder toward her. "These are their stories. Read them. Remember them. They're not just numbers on a spreadsheet." She nodded, clutching the folder like a lifeline. "George started therapy yesterday. And you?" "Tomorrow." She glanced at Lily through the glass. "I want to be better. For her. For myself." My mother stood, gathering her papers. "I'll file these with legal. Barbara, don't forget the budget meeting at 2. After she left, Barbara's composure cracked slightly. "Ryan's sentencing is next week." "I know." "He's asking to see Lily one last time." The old anger flickered, but it felt distant now, like a storm on the horizon rather than a hurricane in my chest. "That's not happening." "I understand." Barbara moved toward the door, then paused. "Alexandra, thank you. Not for forgiving us, but for showing us another way." After she left, I walked to my father's old office. It remained untouched since his death 2 years ago, just before I met Ryan. The leather chair creaked as I sat behind his desk, opening the bottom drawer where he kept his important papers. The envelope was there, just as Mum had said, my name written in his familiar scrawl. "Dear Alex," it began, "if you're reading this, you've finally taken your place at Monroe Organics. Not because you were forced to, but because you chose to. You've always understood that true strength isn't in what we own, but in how we rebuild what's broken. Lily's laughter drifted through the halls, followed by Jessica's playful voice. Through the office window, I could see Barbara in the conference room, earnestly explaining budgets to a group of community members. In the parking lot, George arrived for his afternoon shift at the food bank we'd established. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan's lawyer. Client requesting meeting before sentencing. Your response? I thought of the man I'd married, of the revenge I'd sought, of the justice I'd found instead. The letter in my hands held one final paragraph. Remember, sweetheart, success isn't measured in victories over others, but in the bridges we build from our broken places. Your mother and I built this company not to create an empire, but to leave something meaningful behind. The true legacy isn't in the name Monroe, but in what we choose to do with the opportunities we're given. I texted back, no meeting, but tell him I'll send updates about Lily, not because he deserves them, but because someday she might want to know her own story. Standing at the window, I watched the sunset paint the city in shades of possibility. The company logo caught the light. Monroe Organics, growing better futures. Dad's slogan, but it meant something different now. Jessica appeared in the doorway. Ready to go? Lily's hungry. Just 1 minute. I folded Dad's letter but didn't put it back in the drawer. Some words needed to be kept closer to the heart. The office hummed with purpose as we left. Not just a business anymore, but a testament to what could grow from the ashes of betrayal. Not quite forgiveness, not quite revenge, but something more complex and true. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in destroying what hurt you, but in building something they never thought you could.